Please welcome Elizabeth Gore, entrepreneur in residence for Dell, Sarah Collins, founder of Wonderbag, and Aaron Sheridan of the United Nations Foundation.
All right. As we've sat here over the last 2 days and around the world, as we've been hearing, everything comes down to the fact that we're talking about a revolution, right? We need a revolutionary way of looking at the world, and we all know that if we're not talking about women in that revolution, we're not going to get there. So the stage is set.
Stage is set.
And it's an honor to be here with two revolutionaries and something that we're going to talk about in a minute. So thank you. But I'm here with two revolutionary women, and I'm going to pose the question first to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you have been a person with a unique perspective in the world about what it means to be an entrepreneur and a woman with a global perspective, right? And you've talked to thousands by this point. But there's a problem. We know women are the answer in solving problems, but at the same time, there's a big problem that's an impediment for them. What is it, and what is it that you're finding in your role as entrepreneur in residence?
Well, I think the greatest opportunity on our planet are women entrepreneurs. If you think about that, women are putting 90% of their income back into their families, and the rest are shoes. So if you see the 10% here. But if we really empower them and invest in them, there's just a huge opportunity. And that is whether you're in California, where I live, whether you're in Bangladesh, whether you're right here, women are that opportunity. And I love if they're profitable. I don't like the debate of for-profit, non-profit. Profitable companies like Wonderbag, I think, are awesome. Our little issue that we have to solve is they need access to capital, they need access to time, and then they need access to mentors around the world. So I love this panel. It's called Revolutionary Women, and you're sitting on it, Aaron, because I think you're one of the greatest mentors for women as a father, as someone who leads these issues, and that's also what they need.
So time, capital, and then friends, or everyone together, right? People who are maybe not women, but all know that we've got to be supporting women. I hope we're going to talk about time. I know we're going to in a second. I want you to go back to the capital issue.
Okay.
Because you said that that's the case, but there are women who own businesses all around, so they're getting capital, or is that not the case?
You know, it's interesting. So if you look at the sliding scale, at Dell, we've done 5 years of studies about women getting access to capital. And if you even think about the United States, which is probably the best entrepreneur hub in the world, women are only getting 7% of venture funding, 7. And if
7% of venture funding in this country.
In the United States. So look at the sliding scale, and if you look at the US, UK, and Canada, which were ranked the top 3 countries for women entrepreneurs, and then you look at a Bangladesh or an Iran, where even having a bank account is hardly legal. There's a huge sliding scale and an issue here. And whether it's $50 in Bangladesh or $50,000 here, women have to get that capital.
Are women 7% of those seeking venture capital in the States? I mean, is there...
Not true. So women are starting businesses twice as fast as men are, actually, but their fail rate hits 10 times higher because they can't get the capital that they need. And that might be in loans, it might be in venture, it might be in equity, or it might be even friends and family bootstrapping.
Okay, so we've got a problem.
Yeah.
All right, got a big one. I hope that since we're all talking about data and the statistics that are out there, I don't think we can let this Social Good Summit go without letting people know that data point. So we got a problem, but we got a solution. And I think we're sitting next to one of them. So tell us about it. What is it? What have you brought here? Because it's just as revolutionary as this approach, because it's all those things you just mentioned, time and entrepreneurship and support. So tell us who you brought.
And a great founder.
Tell us about it. We're going to hear about your story and what this is here.
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to be at the summit. This is a Wonderbag, which is a portable, non-electric slow cooker, and it uses heat retention cooking. So you literally bring your food to the boil on a fire or a stove.
So I'm sitting next to a stove right now.
This
okay, all right.
is a stove.
Okay.
And you put your pot inside the bag, you close it, and it continues to cook for 8 to 12 hours. Now, what is extraordinary about the entrepreneur angle and time poverty is that almost half of humanity, that's 3 billion people, eat off open fires every day. I mean, that's extraordinary. And 4 million people die annually. That's more than HIV and malaria combined in the majority world, the biggest killer. Now, if we look, and that's from indoor air pollution related.
Could you repeat that stat again? How many people die?
4 million die of indoor air pollution related diseases like pneumonia, TB, and half of those are children under the age of 5.
Okay.
That is alarming. And our data has found we have over 1 million Wonderbags in homes across the world now. And we've spent a lot of time looking at the impact that the Wonderbag is making. And one of the things that's keeping women out of the workforce, out of entrepreneurship opportunities, is they have to cook for their families. So they spend between 4 to 8 hours a day over an open fire. Also, we're seeing girls getting back into school. We're seeing a huge reduction in deforestation and people eating far more nutritious meals. So the Wonderbag, even though it's a simple solution, it's making massive impacts, and it's a catalyst for change in communities around the world.
So this is a story, by the way, would you lift it up so people can see what's going on here? Because it looks like, and I'm sure many people thought I brought it out as my snappy accessory, but it's a fairly simple design for a very important issue.
Absolutely.
As you're telling the story, though, this just didn't happen. It happened because you made it happen. So you're an entrepreneur. You're talking about a global issue that not that many people know about it, that of clean cooking solutions. I want to start first with, how do you get something like this done? Because it's not enough just to have a good idea. So how do you, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, how do you get something like this done? How did it happen?
Well, you know, Aaron, I grew up in apartheid South Africa, and one of the issues for me was the inequality with women specifically. Obviously, there was apartheid, so I was terribly confused between the black and the white issue, but also the issue around women, sleeping around fires, spending hours. And I grew up with a huge kind of passion to change the status quo. And I think we know that to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a very high pain threshold. So I can honestly tell you this has been the most extraordinary journey. And the reason that I've continued, and you know, the access to capital, but it's the women of Africa who've given me the inspiration to keep going, to actually, and you know, big companies like Unilever, Paul Pullman has been an extraordinary mentor for me, as has Elizabeth, who saw the potential. They saw a simple bag being a revolutionary product. And I think that that's important to talk about networks and to talk about mentors.
Which are important to you. These networks and this coalition is important for you, right?
Absolutely.
So how's that network working?
And that's what I've just launched, and we launched at the summit, is the Coalition of Action. And that really is a call to action for businesses, for leaders to join us. So many businesses and individuals want to fulfill their SDG goals. We're looking forward to 2030, and we're saying, how can we actually touch on those goals? End poverty, inequality, and the Wonderbag gets right to the last mile. It actually gets to the women that need it the most. We can empower those women to be entrepreneurs. They're living on 20 US cents. We've proved through our data that they can move to $2 simply by using the Wonderbag.
Because the Wonderbag is giving them, and this is what's so interesting, Elizabeth, you mentioned women create the revolutions of our time, and we need it right now, but they create it and they need capital. But you're also mentioning this time factor.
Right.
So is the Wonderbag that it's giving time, or is it the health issue? Which one of those are we talking about? And then Elizabeth, I want to come back to you because I know you've met with some of these people who are working with it, but what is it that you think is giving back?
So for me, time poverty is an extraordinary
Explain
thing.
time poverty.
So what that means around the world, and that's why we've developed the business model we have, where you in America can buy a Wonderbag today and one is donated to a family in Africa. So that's one way of joining the Coalition of Action, because time poverty is a global phenomenon. In Africa, when you look at women who are spending 8 to 10 hours a day collecting firewood, collecting water, standing over a stove, cooking beans, long, slow cooking food, which is the nutritious food that they need.
Sure.
Suddenly, you put the Wonderbag in, they bring it to the boil, put it in here, and we're giving them back 5 hours. That 5 hours directly translates into economic benefits.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's touching all the goals. That's ending hunger. It's ending inequality.
Violence against women, deforestation, it's incredible.
So tell
Absolutely.
us. So tell us. We're at a conference where many people love tech, right? You'll have your tech in your hand. You can't help yourselves. This is high tech and revolutionary in another way, right? So what I'd love to do is I'd love to find out from you, Elizabeth, because we've described what giving back time to women can do. Elizabeth, give us a reality check on what it is. You've mentioned capital, you've mentioned time, you've mentioned support. Tell us a story about an entrepreneur that overcame some of these things. I know you're their voice, and I know you've pledged to some of them to give their story. Can you tell us a story about what happens when a woman does have that and what she's been able to do?
Well, it's exciting for me because my favorite companies right now are those that are profitable but have a very overt, purposeful outcome. So if you think about, I think you told me when we first met that cooking over an open stove is like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Can y'all imagine Martha Stewart just, smoking away? I mean, that would be a travesty, right? So this is really interesting to me because I love that it's a profitable company. So there's a market creation here, and there's also demand creation and so on. But then also we're going back to giving back time. So if y'all think about your day to day, think about what you did today, and especially you moms in the room. Think about feeding your kids, getting dressed, getting wet, getting dry again, all the things that you had to do, changing the car like I did on my way here. What are all those things you have to pack in a day? Can you imagine losing 5 hours? 5 hours? I mean, I don't have time to pee. I cannot imagine losing 5 hours. So this whole notion of time, anyone who asks me in the tech space, what is technology given? And I think it's a great equalizer. It's democratized our world, but it's also given us a lot of time back. And I know everyone complains about, too many emails, too many texts, and so on, but think about the efficiency in your life, right? So what I love are solutions that you think, why didn't I think of that? But then you use technology to get them out into the world, right? So we were just in Cape Town at the Dell Women's Entrepreneur Summit, and our whole goal there was to help Sarah think about how do we use technology to get these in the hands of everyone who needs it. So that's what tech, I think, provides to women entrepreneurs, is that access. Now, if we can get the capital to wrap around it as well, I think that's incredibly exciting.
And just to add to that is that, I always call myself a tech startup because this is actually the oldest technology in the world. So I think
the oldest technology being
cooking technology.
Cooking like this in this way.
So, exactly. I mean, I learned this from my grandmother. So I think it's important for us to just take a moment to realize that culturally relevant technologies, not all technologies are going to come out of Silicon Valley.
That's right.
So these actually are culturally relevant in the developing world, or the majority world as I call it, but it's also relevant in the US. If you think about it, a lot of people don't want to leave a slow cooker plugged in. You're a busy mom, but you want your children to come home to a healthy, nutritious meal. If you take 10 minutes to chop it up, bring it to the boil, leave it in here all day, and they come home to a healthy chili or whatever it might be. I mean, so the relevance is actually, and it's portable, so for potlucks and all that, and that's why we sell it in the US. And I think one of the things that entrepreneurs can do in the developing world is look at culturally relevant technologies and link with partners like yourselves who then have the smart technologies that we can access to spread it. And that's what one of our goals is with the partnerships, goal 17.
So Elizabeth, you mentioned that technology can help create those networks like the one you're working with, to take a technology and do something revolutionary. But what's beautiful about the conversation and speaking with you two revolutionary women is that making a revolution happen is sometimes going back to something that already existed. You said your grandmother taught you this technique. I met you in South Africa. I could see the energy that when you brought the Wonderbag around, the first time I saw you, it was about something that was familiar and also new at the same time, right? So if you could have, let's say, an audience of the most influential people of our time. Look at all of their faces glowing in their iPads and iPhones, and maybe some of them are Pokemon going, I don't know. So this is the moment to blend that technology with this technology. What's the call to action to the people who are here, all of whom we should all be acting like revolutionary women?
Yeah.
So what should we be doing as revolutionary women, Elizabeth?
So I really I think everyone in this room, you're a revolutionary woman, all right? Especially you in the suit, all right? All of you are. But if you could just make the commitment to give one of those things I mentioned earlier back to women, and I don't care what country it is, or if it's in your neighborhood, or it's someone who you'll never see their face, but you're online with them. So what's the access to capital piece? You can donate to a woman. Even better, you can invest in her company, so you'll actually get that money back. Amazing. Give her time. So think about that time poverty piece. Mentor someone. Give them access to your contacts and so on. And then the third is just expand your network and overtly think about women being in it. Whether it's a board you're building, is there at least 1 or 2 women on it? The companies you're investing in, something you're donating to. That unconscious bias, I think, is pulling us back. I think the world wants women to succeed, but until we make a very overt choice. So I'm asking all of you to just give one of those 3 or 4 things in your next year, the access to time, capital, your networks, and so on.
What would be your call to action?
I agree with what Elizabeth's saying, and I have a direct call to action around the Wonderbag and the SDG goals for 2030, and that is called the Coalition of Action. And we're asking individuals, I think everybody is an individual philanthropist within themselves, but some people don't know where to go. They don't want to give $1 and not know where that's, and how is it measurable? So what we have done is we have spent a year creating measurable, tangible, and reportable solutions through the Wonderbag, so we know exactly what communities are, how they are being empowered, that use the Wonderbag. So really the direct call to action is go to change.org and join our petition.
Okay, so you're part of the Change platform?
Yeah,
okay.
We're part of the Change platform. We also, businesses who would like to be part of the Wonderbag, we get to the last mile woman. We can empower 100,000 women where there is no infrastructure. That's what we are experts at. And that's the world where I come from. So we have a lot of data to prove that. Also, buy a Wonderbag and one gets donated. It's as simple as that. Give one to your friends for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. And I think one of the most important things is be generous and believe in yourself. Because if you do that, you know, they always say that if you do something for somebody else, you feel so much better about who you are.
So we've got in front of us a call to action. We've got some remarkable stats that, frankly, if there's any room in the world that could break that down, the stat on women being unfairly
3% of capital in the world. That's
discriminated under access to venture capital. Ridiculous. We've got this stat about the killing, what happens, the cooking is killing women.
4 million people die annually.
So it's on us that we know this information and we can be using this information. How many children?
Half of those are children under the age of 5. And I think another startling statistic is half of humanity, almost half, 3 billion people eat off open fires. If we can reduce those fire use by 90%, think of the impact we can all have. Mm-hmm.
I've got a stat for you. There are 2 revolutionary women on this stage. I think we should all join in thanking them for their example. And thank you for helping lead us to 2030. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are taking a 10-minute intermission, after which we'll hear an address from the Vice President